Hi, we're back with another Premiere tutorial. This time I'm going to bring in Illustrator to make a really dynamic looking lower third. Let me find it here on my timeline. I'm pressing minus to zoom out. There it is. Zoom back in, and there we go. Okay, I've got 4 layers here. I've got the footage layer on the bottom. My bottom graphic layer was made with this rectangle tool in Premiere. It's set up like this. Just dragged it across with a red fill, a shadow, and then I gave it a opacity of 90%. So I get this little bit of see-through here. Got a little line at the bottom. The next one is what I did in Illustrator, and I'll show you that in just a second. It's this blue-gray thing that kind of moves across here and gives it that extra dynamic level. And then my last one is the text, which actually I want to move up a little bit. So if you don't already do this with your things, you should know that effect controls up here is really the way that you want to manipulate pretty much anything that you put on screen. So I just wanted to bring that up kind of right there so that the bottom of these letters isn't touching the bottom of my blue line and the art teacher bit is not touching the top of the red. So that's pretty good. So let's go and look at what I did in Illustrator so that you can see here. Premiere does not do gradients very well, or not very easily anyway. So I switched over to Illustrator and I created this document with File New. I went to the tab for Film and Video and just chose an HD V1080 to create a new file. It gives you something like this with a clear background, and I made a couple of gradient filled rectangles, choosing that center gradient fill and setting them up. One is a dark blue to light blue, and the other one is kind of a sort of an indigo purple, dark purple to a light gray. And I set their gradients going in opposite directions to kind of highlight the motion as we move it around. And I just saved this to where all my other footage stuff is, went to my project window, brought it in, there it is, lower third bar, .ai. Illustrator files work great with Premiere. They're designed to work together. So if I play through this, spacebar, you'll see those gradients kind of slowly moving, and at the end, I pulled it in. Now, the whole bar kind of comes in here at the end. And the last thing I'm going to do to this, I'm going to apply from my transitions, effects, video transitions, a little cross dissolve to the end of that piece, and actually all of it. And I may bring in that bottom bar too. So that moves a little bit. But I'm going to put this cross dissolve on both ends all the way around so it fades in, fades out. I'm not using my dip transitions because that would cause all of my video to dip and look weird. So let's look at this again with the dissolves. Fades in, it's moving, and then it goes out. So how did I make it move, right? This one in the middle, right, the .ai, and I can see here that I'm on lower third .ai, is really the only one that is moving. And like I said before, your effect controls is where you're going to do that. You need to toggle on position, and I'll take that out. I'll delete the keys. Yeah, sure, why not? Just undid everything. So I'm going to go back to the beginning here, where you can barely see it coming in, and I'm going to slide my position of this thing. This is the left-right position. All the way over, you can see there it is, it's coming to the screen, right? I'm going to start it so that you can see it's filled the whole thing, and then I will toggle on the animation at that point and maybe move it all the way over to the beginning of the clip. I did it here so I could see what I was doing, because if you start all the way at the beginning with a crossfade on, it's difficult to see. So now I'm going to go near the middle-ish, right? And I'm going to change my value, sliding it over. You can see that getting darker. Now I don't want it to come all the way in here like I've done there. I want it to just come to the point where, yep, it's still off the edge. And I'll go back here and I'll go the other way again, sliding it back over, brightening things up, and maybe I'll stop it right there before her shoulder. Again, I'll take this keyframe that I just made by changing the positions, and I'll slide that all the way to the end. So it should just be going out right at the end. I also don't like necessarily how long these crossfades are happening. So I'm going to click down here on my timeline and zoom in. I can grab these guys. I'm going to line them all up here. Make that dissolve out a little bit shorter. Just using pretty much any tool. If you mouse over the edge of a transition, it'll become a bracket there and it'll allow you to change the size of it or the length of it. Zoom back out a little bit. There we go. Now, so again, position. I've changed the values here after toggling on the animation, and you need to always have at least 2 values to make something move. You need to have a starting point with the values that you have for it to start moving, and then you need to give it an ending point value. If I wanted it to pause for any amount of time, I would have to have 2 of these keyframes in my animation that have the same values. So just by changing it, I add another set of values. You know, I can make it go this way a little bit more, and now it's gonna move even more. So I'm kind of dancing this thing around a little bit. That might be a little too much, but it's still a lot more dynamic than a flat shape that sits there and does nothing. So I hope your lower thirds look awesome. Remember, less is more. Color and gradients and stuff like that. Make it subtle, but just noticeable enough that you see it. Thanks for watching.